Hello and welcome to our Friday webinar. We are on with Pamela Clark. Welcome, Pamela. Hey, and today, let's see, we're talking about hormones, just the facts. So we're just gonna matter-of-factly address all your hormone concerns this time of year. It's the time of year, right? Is this the spring has sprung about to?
Well, I think after what I present today, everyone will understand that this isn't about spring. It's about all year round these days. So,
That is true. Okay, yeah. So we will do some myth busting as well on this
mhm.
webinar. So um, I got to make you a co. Are we doing a share? Are you sharing with us today? A PowerPoint or any?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just made you a co-host, so there we go. Let's see here, and we just marched right into March. I hope everyone had a spectacular extra February day yesterday. You get the 29 days every 4 years. So hope that made the most of it. Yeah, so
Oh,
all
yeah.
right. I'm sure we're gonna get some questions because it seems like hormones drive a lot of perplexing behaviors for people that they might not understand very well. So with that note, I'm going to let you take it away, Pamela. And just a reminder, so we'll have questions. We'll save them for the towards the end and just use the Q&A button and not the chat button. And we'll see how many we can get through. But I know we have an important topic, so I'm going to let you take it away.
Right. Okay. I will. I promise to march right along and hopefully share plenty of time for questions.
All right.
There we go. All right. So, yes, today we're talking about hormonal behavior, and hopefully I will be providing you with a presentation that is cohesive enough that you can take it, not just listen to it, but take it and apply some of the strategies to your own life so that you can improve the things. Excuse me. So, I believe hormone production in companion parrots is about the least understood but most determinant aspect of owning parrots. And I want you to know that I chose that word determinant on purpose because the experience that a parrot has in this area will determine 100% their quality of life in their home with you in the future. So this is serious stuff. And I want you also to know that I've been a pioneer in identifying and describing this syndrome. I started back over 15 years ago talking about the effect that fats and carbohydrates have on behavior. So I have studied this with a very strong focus because I think it's so important. So today, I'm going to offer you my most recent thoughts. First of all, we've got to discuss the significance of unneutered. We cannot safely neuter parrots. And we have to couple that knowledge with the knowledge that they are also undomesticated. And that means that any adult parrot's top priority is going to be to access the raw materials, the activities or the foods or the spots that will support reproduction. Even if those things are not exactly like the things they would have in the wild, they have enough of the qualities that those wild aspects of their environment would have, that they still strive to access them. So we're dealing with behavior that is driven by instinct. And we have a choice. We can either keep that little flame as low as we possibly can, or we can light it on fire. So, a parrot's unneutered status influences their behavior. I don't think I'm telling any of you things that you don't know. They strive to form a pair bond with us. They want to be close to us all the time, seeking interactions in the intimate zone. If any of you have not read my blog posts on parrots and proximity, please do so because you'll understand more what I'm talking about when it comes to the intimate zone. But you can consider this to be 0 to 24 inches from your body. Companion parrots also engage in cavity seeking. They are trying to find an appropriate location for nesting, and they will show a strong preference for foods that are high in metabolizable energy. And all of these things are considered as resources because our birds instinctively understand that they need these things to achieve that final goal of reproduction. And so they will engage in resource guarding. If a bird is on your shoulder, he will try and bite anybody else that comes near. That's resource guarding. A parrot who has a valuable piece of food may show aggression towards anyone else who comes near it. So this is something that I have just worked out. I may change my ideas in the future, but I think we need some way, at least a beginning way, of calculating how much hormone production our birds are experiencing using behavioral symptoms. So I think that the baseline symptom for hormone production in companion parrots is cavity seeking. They are all hormonal all of the time because they are not neutered. So this idea about hormone seasons and all this stuff, it's just, it doesn't apply. It's not based on reality. All parrots are hormonal all of the time. And we see this, even if there are really not triggers present in the environment for increased hormone production, many people see a slight increase just when the day length changes, either in the spring as it gets longer or in the fall as it gets shorter. And so when those small changes happen in day length outside, you may see cavity seeking. And here's a good example of this. This is Marley, he was a yellow-naped Amazon that spent a stint in our home at one time. He was in the bathroom with my daughter there and just happened to jump into the drawer while she had it open. It's a very good example of cavity seeking. But if you have triggers in the environment that will increase hormone production, then you're going to start seeing regurgitation and masturbation. So a bird who displays those symptoms has higher hormone production than a bird who is just only cavity seeking. And then there's more triggers in the environment. That's when you get egg laying and feather damaging behavior. It's predictable. It may not occur in some species. I'm speaking about feather damaging behavior specifically. Amazons tend to be very resistant to that particular problem. But with grays or cockatoos or Quakers, absolutely that bird's going to start feather damaging with high hormone production. And then beyond that, we're going to get cloacal prolapse and self-mutilation. Now, all of these levels of hormone production can be resolved if correct steps are taken. Now, just generally speaking, it's important to understand that increased hormone production does not cause aggression or screaming. It's a popular belief on social media that parrots scream because they are hormonal. No, they don't. Parrots scream because the screaming has been rewarded. But when a parrot is allowed to engage in cavity seeking or maybe some very close physical, intimate interactions, then it puts that bird into a heightened state of arousal, which then makes those behaviors much more likely. And a good example is that very common little situation that happens where a bird is sitting on your neck very happily, and all of a sudden bites your neck and you don't understand what's happened. Well, that's what's happened. Now, my hypothesis is that the majority of feather damaging behavior in self-mutilation is caused by years of hormone production along with the stress of captivity. The two are just rolled into one. I realize this is a rather shocking statement. I've never heard it before and I've never said it before, but it's based upon literally decades of consulting and being able to solve these problems by recommending certain things to reduce hormone production. So I proved my hypothesis consistently just by myself. So this does represent a change in my thinking. Heretofore, when I have written about feather damaging behavior, I have stated that it was due to a number of different reasons. Well, yes, that can be true. Like, if a bird doesn't get to bathe for 30 years, it may predispose them to feather damaging behavior. But I think that if you don't light that fire of hormone production, you greatly reduce the chances that you will ever see these two types of behavior. And now I've noticed that increased hormone production has become a primary behavior problem. That's what people say when they come to me. It's not because their bird is biting or screaming or feather damaging. No, the bird is just hormonal off the charts. It's masturbating 24/7 rather than interacting with enrichment. And I attribute this to a few things. Number one, I think global warming is having a serious and significant impact on hormone production for our parrots, because it's no longer about spring is here. They are hormonal all the time. Certainly when day length changes, you'll see a little, a little kick in hormonal behavior, a little increase, but it's occurring all the time. So a couple of case studies, just so you can understand a bit more about how this works. I consulted about a green cheek conure named Apple, who was a 9-year-old male, and this was a referral from a veterinarian. His problem was that he was self-mutilating both feet at night. The owners reported almost constant masturbation and regurgitation, and he had long ago stopped interacting with enrichment. The vet had diagnosed macroorchidism. Basically, his gonads had swelled to the point where they were pressing on his sciatic nerve, causing discomfort at night and resulting in the self-mutilation. And the vet believed that increased hormone production was causing the swelling of the gonads. The diet was 90% Harrison's adult lifetime and dried peas. This bird had clipped wings. He was the only bird in the home. And I think that being the only bird in the home also greatly predisposes a bird to feather damaging behavior and self-mutilation. And I only really realized that as I was formulating case studies recently. Every single time the common denominator was only bird in the home. And then Apple was pair bonded to both people and was either consistently in their presence or most often on one of their shoulders. They joked to me that they just kind of passed Apple back and forth between them. So here were the solutions that I proposed. I wanted to decrease the metabolizable energy of the diet. So right away, I had them eliminate the peas. I kept the Harrisons because that's a good pellet. I didn't see any need to change it. However, I wanted to change Apple's consumption of Harrisons. Therefore, we introduced a good chop mix that was a low-carb chop mix, and nutriberries and avocados, both of which have very low metabolizable energy. And of course, the chop does, because it is 60% or higher of vegetables. And so by offering those foods, we got Apple to eat a bit more of those, and he still enjoyed the nutrition from the Harrisons, but didn't have all of the calories. I also recommended that they move away from having him on their body and instead replace that kind gradually with training different behaviors, like targeting, things like that. We also reduced the daytime temperature. They were keeping Apple with them in their home office every day. And that was a rather small room with a window that the sun shone through. So it would often be 78 degrees in that office during the day. And that was a real trigger I knew that that was a factor in hormone production. So we moved Apple downstairs for the day out of that office. And that solved, or that served two purposes. We got Apple away from the owners a bit and reduced the temperature. And over time, the mutilation stopped and they were able to retire the camera that they had been previously using. These poor folks had been sleeping in shifts. They had a camera on him at night, and one of them was constantly monitoring him to prevent him from, you know, bleeding out and dying during the night. So self-mutilation can be solved. It is not a mystery. Now let's look at the case of Maria Pia, who's an African gray, 2.5 years old, just beginning to become sexually mature. She was female and fully flighted, and again, an only bird. So you notice wing clipping doesn't have that much of an effect on this, but only bird status is not so hot for parrots. And I'm happy to report that her owner, who still consults with me even 2 years later, now has a second gray. And I helped him all during that process. It was very, very wonderful. So what's interesting about Maria Pia is that her feather damaging behavior occurred only when she was on the owner's body. So that's pretty clear, right? She was pair bonded to the owner. She would sit on his shoulder every single night for TV time. She also slept in the owner's bedroom. That is a bad decision to have parrots sleep in your bedroom, just saying. And she also fed a diet, or he did, that was very high in fat. He was just trying to make her happy. He loved her a whole bunch. So my solutions were, you got to gradually take her off your shoulder, put a perch right next to the couch, and, you know, put a toy on there that she will interact with, and give her food rewards for staying there, rather than letting her perch on your shoulder or your lap or your knee or the tip of your toe, which were the 4 locations in which she engaged in feather damaging behavior. This gentleman did not happily give up his cuddle time with his bird at night. It was tough going, but he managed to do it. And now she is never on his body for, you know, more than a minute, maybe. She sleeps in her own cage at night, which is where parrots should sleep. He has a real focus on training. This bird is amazing. She will do recall from another room where she can't even see him. She wears a harness. He recently took her to San Francisco and sent me a photograph. This is an African gray who is happily wearing a harness. She asked to wear the harness and go outside onto the busy San Francisco street. I mean, she's really come a very long way, and so has he. And then we also made a diet change to Harrison's high potency chop, nutriberries, and ava cakes. He had previously been suspicious of pellets, so she hadn't been eating any of them. So the appropriate choice for her, given that she undoubtedly was beginning to suffer malnutrition, was the Harrison's high potency. But again, I wanted her eating the chop, the nutriberries, and the ava cakes to help bring down the metabolizable energy of the diet. And so her feather damaging behavior resolved, although it does still occur a bit once a year. All right, let's look at another case study. Lady Joanna Banana is a Pacific parrotlet, 2 years old, female, again, fully flighted, but the only bird. And so she started feather damaging behavior at age 2. Her diet was Lafeber pellet berries, seed mix, and table food. She was getting a lot of rice, pasta, popcorn, and bread, all carbohydrates. She didn't spend a lot of time really on the shoulder, but she was there a bit, and they engaged in quite a bit of snuggling just before bed. She was pair bonded to the owner and did engage in some cavity seeking behavior. So the solutions, again, were to gradually reduce the time on the shoulder, eliminate cuddling in her hair. That was what they liked to do at night. You know, she would read a book or relax in some other way. And Joanna would be up in her hair, just kind of cuddling. And so I wanted her to stop that at night, that 30 minutes of cuddling that she always did. And I wanted her to eliminate the seed and the table food from the diet. So this was interesting. This was a very, very intelligent woman with a strong scientific background. And when I proposed that she get Joanna off of her body, she was skeptical. And who can blame her, really? I mean, it does sound a bit far-fetched if you just tell someone that being on your body is going to make your bird feather pick. So she said, well, I'm not going to stop the cuddling. And I said, that's okay, but I no longer can guarantee that I can solve the problem. And I had given her a guarantee because Joanna had only been feather damaging for maybe 2 months, and it should be easy to solve a problem if it's only been going on for that length of time. So I had said, I am, 98% sure we can solve the problem. And when she said, well, I'm not going to stop cuddling, that was when I said, well, then I'm not guaranteeing any 97% that I can solve the problem. And so what she did was she did her own experiment. She cuddled with her for 30 minutes one night and then put her in a cage that had clean papers and took a photograph of what the papers looked like the following morning. And then she did that for 25 minutes, 20, 15, on down to 0. And she proved it to herself and to me. I have the photographs. When she reduced the cuddle time to 0, the feather damaging behavior stopped. All right, so again, this is the #1 problem facing parrots and their owners today. And it not only impacts the parrots, of course, but causes a huge amount of frustration for their owners because a lot of birds scream just for proximity. If they are pair bonded to you, every gene in their body is screaming that they need to be at least 3 feet from you, not 10 feet from you. It's a big thing for them. So a lot of times parrots aren't really screaming for attention. They just want to be nearer to you. And then, of course, you get aggression towards less favorite family members. And eventually you have a parrot that runs the house. And I chose the photo of an umbrella cockatoo for this because I would say umbrellas are the mascots for this sort of behavior. I get a lot of cases where the umbrella is screaming, biting, chasing people, feather damaging, and it's a real mess. It can be solved, but this is what happens. So what are the specific triggers for increased hormone production? They are the existence of a pair bond with a person or another bird, engaging in close physical activities in the intimate zones, the ability to engage in cavity seeking, as this Amazon is enjoying here, that I cannot tell you the number of people who give their birds cardboard boxes to keep them busy, and it does do that. And then they will, as I said, prefer foods that are high in metabolizable energy, and warmer temperatures also are a trigger. Now, why am I not talking about all the triggers that everybody on social media is talking about, like day length and sleep? Don't we all know that parrots need 12 hours of sleep and 12 hours of darkness, and that's going to reduce hormone production? No, my friends, that does not reduce hormone production. Parrots do not need 12 hours of sleep, and they do not need 12 hours of darkness, and neither one of those things is going to give you a less hormonal parrot. And in fact, it might even give you a more hormonal parrot. Rainfall, only budgies and cockatiels are going to respond to rainfall because they are opportunistic breeders. As far as nesting materials, a lot of people will say, oh, you can't give your bird stuff to chew because they'll make a nest out of it. Well, parrots do need things to chew. It's their primary job in the world. And that doesn't change just because they're living with us. And so we have to give them as much enrichment as they can possibly chew up in a day. and then just clean out the bottom of the cage at the end of the day, and your bird won't make a nest, and it really won't have that much of an impact on hormone production. All right, so what are we going to do once that flame has become a wildfire? All right, we're going to look at these triggers one by one and whether or not we can do anything about them. As I said, parrots are driven to form a pair bond, and they don't stop just at one. I know one green cheek conure that just gets passed around. They have a large Indian family, and he never sits on his cage or his perch. He just sits on people all day long, and he's one of the most hormonal birds I've ever met. So it is, make no mistake about it, it is periods of physical closeness that drive the formation of a pair bond. And that includes sharing furniture. I had one case where a little green cheek obviously had a pair bond with this owner, and I couldn't understand why. And then one day, just as a matter of, casual conversation, she drops the detail that he sits on the top of her laptop all day long. So again, that bird was pretty close to being in the intimate zone. The laptop is warm, maybe a degree warmer up on the top of it because of the heat that rises. And he was engaged in some sort of communal activity with her. Same, sharing furniture is a communal activity. Okay, so the thing about the pair bond is that you can't do anything about it. Once a bird looks at you as his sexual partner, you can't change that. And so therefore, the presence of a pair bond is going to impact behavior even after you stop the physical closeness. It's just something that you should know, because the parrot is going to react to the fact that you're still in the environment. You belong to that bird in a way. You are a resource to him, and you are still in the environment. So what we do is we just focus on changing what we can: our proximity to the bird, the social activities we engage in, the environment we provide, the diet, and the temperature at which the bird lives. So the second trigger that causes increased hormone production is physical closeness, sitting on shoulders or laps or arms or hands. And here, duration is the key. Folks do not want to give up being able to have their parrots close. I've never yet talked to anybody who was happy about having to stop having their birds physically close to them. And they will often also, they say the bird sits on their shoulder a lot. So I'll say, okay, no shoulders. And then before I know it, the bird is sitting on their lap. So now I better say, oh, you can't have your your bird rather, sitting on your shoulder or your lap. Then, damned if they don't have the bird on their arm the next time. And then if I say arm, then I hear the bird is sitting on their hand for 20 minutes a day. So I've learned I have to be very clear. The bird needs to just be on a perch and not in contact with your skin. Cuddling, sleeping together, those certainly increase hormone production. And I would say petting or close contact for longer than a minute, or just excess time in the intimate zone. So what's the solution for shoulder addiction, for lack of a better word? This is a very tough subject because we are not having our birds on our shoulders for the bird's sake. We're doing it for our sake. As human beings, we are all exceptionally lonely people, at least a good percentage of us who own parrots. And we shore that loneliness up by having a parrot on our shoulder. And therefore, then the real problem in trying to get a parrot off the shoulder is us, not the bird. Most birds adjust to this like that, but the people don't adjust quite as well. We're the ones addicted to this activity because it makes us feel slightly better. It reduces our distress just a little bit. So here's the best way that I have found. Just reduce it gradually. If the parrot is on your shoulder for 3 hours a day, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Start with an hour at a time. And here's what I want you to do. Fill up the gas tank first. Most of the time, I think, when you put a bird on your shoulder, it's because you've been away for a while. Either it's morning and the bird's been away from you all night, or you've been at work and suddenly you've come home. So it's normal to plop the bird on your shoulder at that time. So I want you to do that because the bird is going to have an empty gas tank of need to be with you, having been away from you. So for both your sakes, fill up the gas tank first, put them on your shoulder for 45 minutes, but then make sure you're in a position where you can then practice 15 minutes of stationing, where you're going to put the bird on a perch and stand right in front of him and just gently feed him reinforcers one after the other to teach him that this perch too can be a very valuable place. And then you gradually, as the bird shows willingness to stay on the perch without distress, you gradually begin to create distance. And the odd thing to me is fascinating is that even the people who resisted this way of living the most report that they are happier and their bird is certainly happier, having made the transition back to separate living. Now, what if a bird has a pair bond with another parrot? That usually develops because of sharing a cage, although, you know, birds do, sometimes it's love at first sight. You can't quite explain it, but usually, again, it's that physical proximity that helps to create the bond. And of course, that pair bond leads to the same sorts of and then
Hi, it looks like we, oh, wait, she's coming back on. I think we lost you for 1 second. You gotta unmute for, sorry, our connection. Can you unmute, Pamela, can you unmute? And then I think we'll be okay. There you go. There you go. Can you hear me? All right. Yeah.
All right. Okay, we're back. Sorry, everyone. Yeah. That was on my end. And so I was just talking about pair bonds between two parrots and the need to have two separate cages for medical or health reasons as well. Because if you have two birds of the same species in one cage, you won't be able to tell whose droppings are whose. And the truth is that parrots are bold, competitive creatures. And rarely do you ever have two birds that are equally competitive. So over time, what can happen, and you'll never notice this, is that one bird may get less access to the resources in the cage simply because his cage mate is a little bolder. So definitely two cages are best for all reasons. And just that amount of separation should be enough to stop any chronic egg laying. There was a study that I stumbled upon and unfortunately didn't save the link too. But it revealed that chronic egg laying in cockatiels could be stopped if the birds were just separated physically by 4 hours. So there you have it. So here's another case study. I worked with Jasper and Sydney and their owner. They were male and female cockatiels that had a room of their own and were only caged at night. The owner had been on social media, so she was providing a 14-hour sleep and dark schedule. So here's the thing, folks. New World parrots become more hormonal in the spring, but Old World parrots become more hormonal in the fall. And so if you provide a 14-hour sleep schedule to an Old World parrot like a cockatiel, you're only making them more hormonal. This is why I do not mess with sleep schedules to reduce hormonal behavior. Parrots should be able to pick their own bedtimes. That's when they start beak grinding, and then they deserve to get up as early as you can possibly get them up. The diet was 85% Harrison's and 15% top seed mix. The problems were that whenever the owner went into the room, Jasper would fly and attack her, and Sydney was engaging in chronic egg laying. Now, I want to, it occurs to me to say a quick word about dealing with aggressive flighted attacks from parrots. It is not necessary to clip their wings to solve this problem, and this should never, ever be chosen as the path forward when you have an aggressive bird. There are many, many other solutions. So in this case, we caged the birds separately in the main living area for 4 hours a day. So that got them out of their own room, which really was in reality their own nest box. And because it was just them in the room the whole time. So they had a complete sense of territory about that room. So we had 2 other cages in the living area. She just brought them out for 4 hours a day, and they enjoyed her presence out there during that time. Again, we reduced the energy level of the diet by adding in nutriberries and ava cakes, and we eliminated the seed mix. We eliminated cuddling and shoulder sitting, which the owner was engaging on with Sydney, or engaging in with Sydney. So she was hopping up Sydney's hormones by allowing this physical closeness with her, but she was also making resource sorting more likely from Jasper. So she was actually doing something to set the stage for his attacks, because she was enjoying this physical closeness with his mate. So she was actually presenting herself as a competitor for Jasper. So we chilled all of that. And then we just had her training, targeting, and other things with both birds, and the flighted attacks improved. That's usually how it works. All right, let's look at cavity seeking. Oops, I better hurry right along. All right, so this takes a myriad of forms, right? They all want to jump into drawers. They want to perch on top of refrigerators or get under things, crawl down your shirt. Even just sitting in a corner of the room and digging is a form of cavity seeking. Certainly digging in the pillows of the couch, even just perching near a dark spot, crawling under furniture, bathrooms for African greys. They all want to own bathrooms. Sleeping huts can be a problem, definitely for your little birds. Letting them sleep in your cupped hand, that's a no-no. Sleeping cages can be a problem. So really the take-home message is just be suspicious, right? If there's some place where your bird wants to be all the time, it's probably best to not let them be there. They have some sort of reason. So these are all the faces of cavity seeking. Please do not give your birds cardboard boxes to keep them busy. The bottom photo here, the African gray, I just happened to catch Navidad up in my closet one day when I had not closed the doors. This is a free-flying cockatoo. That's why she's outside. This bird could be off doing anything it wanted to do, but what is it doing? Cavity seeking by just crawling underneath a sweatshirt that his owner had thrown on the ground. just being able to look into dark places and chew a bit, that fits the bill for cavity seeking. I wouldn't give my bird anything like this. It was all enclosed. And again, just being in a corner somewhere and getting to chew a bit, that's going to provide a sexy experience. So solutions for cavity seeking are just to keep them out of there. How do you keep them out of there? Well, the best way is you always want to teach your parrot to do something. So we're going to set up an interesting habitat like this Avis station here and other perches as well. We're going to provide enrichment on those perches, and then we're going to practice stationing frequently enough that that bird learns that all the good things happen on those perches. So what we're going to do is basically create gamblers. They're going to stay there on the off chance that that is where the good things will come. And then occasionally it may be necessary to make a particular area much less attractive by using something aversive. All right, now I'd like to say a word about sleep cages. This is a real sore spot with me. You know, once everybody believed the invalid information that parrots need 12 hours of sleep, they all realized then that they had to have the parrot sleep somewhere else, right? Because, you know, if you have to get up for work at 6 and get your parrot up at 6, then that means your bird's got to go to sleep at 6 o'clock at night. So that's why sleep cages came about. Parrots shouldn't really have sleep cages, in my opinion. There's very few situations in which they are advisable, and I sort that out with owners who consult with me. So here's an example of how they can be a problem. This owner had 2 little green cheek conures that were literally masturbating constantly. This was a case that came to me just because of increased hormone production with some aggression mixed in. So she had done exactly what social media told her to do. She gave the birds a sleep cage in a little alcove here. She used a very dark blanket for a cover. The birds did get to experience physical closeness, even though it was through the bars. She purposely heated the room to 80 degrees because she'd been told that birds needed warmer heat when they, or a warmer temperature when they sleep. And then she left them in there for 14 hours of darkness. And so even though this is a New World parrot, you do something like this, your bird's going to be super hormonal. All right, diets high in metabolizable energy certainly are problems. That includes fats and carbohydrates. The most common culprits are nuts, seeds, usually safflower or sunflower, fruit and dried fruit, and anything like bread, pancakes, you know, anything made with wheat flour, and then, of course, sugar is a problem. That's your #1 carbohydrate, right? But then pellets, pellets can also be a problem because not all pellets are created equal, and some have very, very high levels of metabolizable energy. The very highest is tops at 3,800 kilocalories per kilogram. That's almost guaranteed to increase hormone production in a parrot. Harrison's high potency course is 3610. High-tech oven fresh bites 3576. Zupreme is only 3390, but sugar is the 5th ingredient. And the best authority that I have states that for people, if sugar is in one of the first 5 ingredients, you should not eat that food because it means it's in there in a very significant quantity. So this is my recommended feeding strategy. Pellets should be available all the time, and hopefully you choose a pellet with lower metabolizable energy. Rowdy Bush is the lowest at 2710. I think that's most appropriate for budgies, cockatiels, eclectus, and some cockatoos. Conures too, well, green cheeks, they do well on Rowdy Bush. The Lafeber fruit pellets are next lowest at $33.25. Harrison's adult lifetime is only $33.40. I do include Harrison's high potency because there are reasons to choose the Harrison's high potency in particular situations. And so in that case, or in every case, I also recommend chop mix in the morning and then Nutriberries and Ava Kicks in the evening, because they too provide foraging experiences. And I want you all to know, I realize I sound like a Lafeber commercial right now, but I was a Lafeber fan long before anybody ever invited me to do these webinars. So this is purely coincidental. The fact that I recommend the Lafeber foods is because there are, if not one of the most, the best formulated pellet on the market. And I can tell you why. I can back it up with facts. So just a little disclaimer there. So how do you approach conversion? If you're just going from one pellet to another, it's easy. You just keep one dish, put in 75% old pellets and 25% new. And then when you begin to see evidence of consumption, you just gradually decrease the percentage of old pellets and increase the new. Now, choose wisely to maximize conversion. What does that mean? Okay, here's what that means. Let's say that I have an Amazon that is eating tops and Zupreme. So we've got sugar and very high caloric content in the current pellet. Now, I might choose either Rowdy Bush or Harrison's for this bird. I think I'm going to recommend Harrison's, because if you're trying to go from very high caloric foods to the lowest, which would be Rowdy Bush, that's going to be a very tough sell to your bird. So what I might, even though Amazon do really well on Rowdy Bush, I like them on Rowdy Bush. So instead, I might recommend Harrison's, and I might actually choose the Harrison's high potency, because then I'm asking the bird to convert from high calorie to still high calorie, just a little less, right? And then also help to get the energy level of the diet down by feeding the other food choices. And then once the bird's fully converted to the high potency, then we can transition them back down to the adult lifetime, and then life will be happy. So that's what I mean. Behavior is a study of one. Each case is a study of one. So I generally devise these conversions for the specific client situation, that client and that bird. If you have a bird who eats a seed mix, though, it really can be easy to convert them to pellets. And here's how I do it. I just start putting, we choose a pellet, we choose the right pellet. So let's keep going on with the same Amazon, right? In this case, though, the Amazon was on the seed diet. So if you're converting from very high fat in a seed mix to any pellet, good luck with that. I think I know one person who ever was successful in doing it that way. So in this case, our pellet choice isn't quite so important. We might choose Harrison's we might choose Rowdy Bush for this very, very hormonal parrot, or we could choose Harrison's adult lifetime. That would be okay also. And then we just put it in a dish, because we're not going from one pellet to another. So it doesn't matter. You just put a few of them in the new dish. And then you're going to take that seed mix and you're going to mix it 50-50 with chop. For a parrot the size of an Amazon, I usually recommend a 1/4 cup chop to a 1/4 cup of seed mixed all together. And then that gets fed. And as the parrot begins to eat more of the chop mix, we begin to reduce the seed until it's down to nothing. Guess what happens? The parrot always begins to eat the pellets. We don't have to do anything. They just start to eat them because At some point, you reduce the seed mix low enough that the bird can't get enough fat in his diet, and he's got to accept the foods. And then I also find that the nutriberries and ava cakes, some people say their birds won't eat them, but my experience is they're accepted very well. Okay, last trigger for hormone production, warmer temperatures. So it's not just day length, warmer temperatures also happen twice a year. Spring and summer bring warmer temperatures, and in the fall and winter, people turn heat on. So once I realized this, I started to ask my clients what temperature they keep their home. And you wouldn't believe it. There are many of you out there who are keeping your homes at 72 degrees or higher because you believe that your parrots need that temperature. And I do realize you got it from authority on social media that that's the case. However, whoever you heard it from was wrong. Parrots will acclimate to live at all kinds of different temperatures. You can happily keep parrots at 68 degrees. You can keep parrots happily at 35 degrees, believe it or not. If we had more time, I would go on into this, but they will acclimate. If you put them outside in the spring, you can leave them out year round. And then also parrots thermoregulate. They trap air in their feathers to be warm. So do not provide supplemental heat. My heat here in this little house, we're having problems with the boiler. It got down to, what was it? I think, well, 64 yesterday, but I think it was even lower than that. Maybe, I want to say 58. It got down to one day here. My birds have been perfectly fine. You really don't need to worry about keeping parrots warm. So don't do it. So in summary, we live with sexually aware parrots. That means we have to behave responsibly, right? They're not little babies and they're not little mush muffins. They are fully actualized adult, undomesticated, and unneutered animals. That means we have to behave responsibly. So we are going to limit interactions in the intimate zone, meaning that we have mostly hands-off relationships with our parrots. We need to pet our mammals instead. That's what I do. I highly recommend it. And we're going to form relationships through teaching our birds to do things and by allowing them to share space with us. We're going to prevent cavity seeking, feed a lower energy diet, and just save high energy foods for training. And we're going to keep temperatures low. This is our job to do this for our parrots. They are happiest when hormone production is kept at that lowest little flame. Thank you very much, all of you, for listening today. I really hope that you will take this information and really think about it and then try and make just even one change in your own parrots' lives that might result in just a bit more balance. So thanks, everyone.
All right. I think
7 minutes for questions, a little bit.
Yeah, we do have some questions, and I think let's see, we got a little time for these. All right, I can't, let's see here. Great presentation. Debunked some myths and some new thought processes that people might not have considered before. So it's always worthwhile. Let's see. Questions. Waiting for the first one. Okay, so Yvonne says 2-year-old yellow-naped Amazon, 2 male yellow-naped Amazons rescued a year apart, given up due to aggression, biting, and attacking people. So they're housed in an outdoor aviary with the heat lamp for freezing weather. They are on a seeded, pelleted diet as well as fresh fruit and veggies. They're unclipped and bathes weekly. Is it an appropriate life for them? They're still extremely aggressive, and seed. Let's see. Seed is sleek and sassy, large hookbill. Wait, I'm not sure what that. Okay, that's tough. Yeah. So, what's your take on that?
Okay. I would say that there's an area to explore here in terms of the amount of interaction they get with humans, because what I didn't hear was anything like daily training, you know, toys, enrichment. I'm sure you're doing the enrichment, but I think it's a mistake to believe that if a bird has another bird, they're fine. I think it's very important that you maintain a really good, rewarding experience with each of them individually, and then also provide a lot of enrichment. So I guess talking off the top of my head, I want to say that it's not optimal because they're away from you and they really should be living in your proximity. But if this is necessary, then you should be making yourself a third resident in the aviary. In other words, frequent it often, do fun things with them when you're out there, hang out there if you're able to, and do some training with them. But I didn't hear anything that I went, oh, you know, although I will say that regarding the diet, if they are living outside and it's cold, feeding some seed mix is actually recommended. I did it when my birds were living, when my grays were living outside in the wintertime. They didn't get seed all year round, however. So if you've got a situation where it's very cold just during a part of the year, then you should only be giving them seed during that part of the year. And then they still do also need fresh fruits and vegetables. Although I don't know why we ever started using that phrase in that sequence. It really should be fresh vegetables and limited fruit. So, you know, they have the same needs as everyone else. Every other parrot who lives in a home. Okay, better go on to the next one.
The next question. Okay. From Kate, Timna Gray, who eats Harrison's HP and lots of chop for training. They use about a tablespoon of safflower and a nut or two a day for motivators. Is that too much? Any other training rewards that you might suggest? She does not like nutriberries. So.
Yeah, I don't recommend ever using nutriberries for training because they're not high enough in metabolizable energy. Birds want high fat, high energy stuff. Nutriberries should be part of the diet. No, I don't think that's too much fat for training. As far as other reinforcers, it can be hard to identify reinforcers. So the first place to start is to ask yourself the question, what is my bird like? And then write down every single thing you can think of. And then you're going to cross off stuff that isn't appropriate, like the coffee that you secretly let them sip in the morning. You know, so then after that, if you want to introduce food as reinforcement, that can get tricky for a couple of reasons. If you're offering something the bird hasn't seen before, they're going to refuse it based upon a neophobic reaction. And if you, with other birds, they might not take it, or they might take it more quickly because of the social aspect of the environment. So you don't get a true read on the value of the reinforcer. So I just tell people, go out to the store, buy a small quantity of walnuts, almonds, pecans, cashews, pine nuts, sunflower seeds in the shell and sunflower seeds out of the shell. And then you just put one piece of each in an empty cup in the cage until your bird starts showing fondness for at least one or two of them. And then, of course, you don't provide those anymore. You use them as reinforcers. I can tell you the African grays, you know, obviously it doesn't extend to each and every individual, but as a theme, they really like cashews. So if you have an African gray, introduce cashews, chop them up and just leave them around until your bird gets hooked on them. For small birds and even large birds, try using millet spray. If they've ever been exposed to it, chances are they really like it. And then you can cut just a short piece and bring it up, let them get a bite, and then bring it away.
Okay. Wow, I think that's okay. I announced today's winner of today's giveaway winner, which is some Lafeber garden. I think it's garden nutriberries. talking about veg, you mentioned earlier, I like that, to rethink veggies and some fruit, like instead of the order of saying that, you're right. I always say fruit and veggies, we should say veggies and fruit. It's my new mindset now, changed. All right, that's going out to Laura. Laura Pagario. Pagaro. I hope I pronounced that right. But you're the winner today. And you and your bird will be getting some of the garden, the Nutriberries, as well as another Lafeber product of your bird's choice. Hope that makes your weekend. Let's see, Brenda's reminding me that booster berries for pet chickens launched today. That's the new Lafeber product. So go on lafeber.com if you want to check out the booster berries for pet chickens. If you have any of those, there you go. So Pamela, gosh, just looking at the chat for today's webinar, there is definitely some appreciation and things that people haven't necessarily heard before. So you are breaking new ground for a lot of people here, myself included, on hormones and parrots. So thank you for that informative webinar for sure. So it's just, everyone's everyone just really, you definitely expanded some mindsets as far as how we approach hormones with our pet birds. So thank you so much. And we're going to continue the conversation on hormones next Friday with Lisa Bono. She's going to do an episode of The Gray Way, and we're going to do, she's going to do a Q&A with hormones. Especially for African Greys, but it'll cover other parrots as well. All right. And then Brenda's reminding everybody that this will be on the YouTube this afternoon. So if you missed part of the webinar, or if you want to rewatch it, go on the Lafeber YouTube channel. All right, everyone. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. All the best to you and your flock. And until next time, thanks again, Pamela. Truly appreciate it.
Always happy to be there.
Can't wait to see your next one. These are awesome. Thank you so much. All right, guys. Bye.